Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Club. I'm your host, Jamil Payne, and with me as always is my co-host, Amanda Comey. Amanda, how are you today?
I am awake, and I am full of delicious Maryland Chesapeake Bay crabs, and I am ready to talk about comic books. Woo!
So, Amanda, today we're reading Planetary, but right now I would like to talk about what I did this weekend. The nerd thing that I did this weekend. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. That's what I'm here for.
So I went to Dragon Con. Dragon Con, if you don't know, is one of the largest, well, you know what, you want to say comic book convention, but really I think we just should start calling them pop culture conventions at this point.
Yeah, I know a few people from this area who go down to Dragon Con, and it seems like they're the friends who are more into like anime.
There's a lot
and
of
like
that there.
really into cosplay.
Yes.
So it seems like it's maybe a little bit more on that side of the convention scene.
Yes. It's been around 20 something years at this point. Like, honestly, in my mind, like, it goes like San Diego Comic Con, New York Comic Con, then Dragon Con. Because, honestly, I don't know any other convention besides those two that get as much attention as Dragon Con. Because Dragon Con is so large at this point. Like it takes up, like, so it's weird, right? It's Labor Day weekend, right? And every Labor Day weekend, there's Dragon Con, right? But there's also Black Gay Pride Week. And there's also like this sports thing like going on, but who cares about that? But like these three major things are happening all at one time in the city. So each group just carve off a giant, just 1/3 of the city just for themselves. Like Uptown is Black Gay Pride, in Midtown, you know what I'm saying? Downtown is Dragon Con. Then off over here to where the sports are, like by the stadiums is where all the sports stuff is happening. So like it's just all these things are just like put together in this one giant weekend. But Dragon Con was cool. I went to one panel that was the Yes Have Some live podcast recording. It's a very good podcast. You guys should definitely listen to it. It started off as a Ghostbuster podcast. What, me listen to something about Ghostbusters? What a shock! But now it's just more of a general, pop culture podcast at this point. But it's really great. The three hosts, Craig, Abigail, and Jake, they are like awesome. They I talked to them for a minute. I showed them my family, so they're real cool. So you get a chance to listen to them. But yeah, we had a great time. Me, my wife, and my son. We caught the train down there like regular people. And we just, it's weird. We are not really panel people, but we went to that one. So like mainly we just go really just to look at costumes all day. And take pictures with people in costumes. And like do some shopping. That's basically why we go there. Like, and it's so damn fun. Like, there's no one there that I wanted to meet that badly. I know we didn't go last year, but the year before we went, right? Mm-hmm. And I got a picture with Jason David Frank, the Green Power Ranger, and I got a picture with Stan Lee. So I have a framed picture of Stan Lee with me and my family, like in my room right now. I'm looking at it as we speak.
I think I've seen that one. You guys have like ridiculously huge smiles.
Yes. Now they get you in and get you out real quick. Now it ain't like you can talk to them, but right. we standing next to them, and like I feel bad. The reason I pushed for that, and it was almost $200 for that picture. I was like, his wife just died. He ain't got much longer for this world. I think we need to get this picture. And I was right. What? I don't mean that to be brag, right? But like, you know what I'm saying? It was just like, this is probably his last year he's ever doing this. So,
yeah.
So I think it's prudent that we go get our picture taken. And we did. I'm glad I have that memento to remember that, hey, I stood next to Stanley and took a picture for like 3 seconds.
I think that's really cool. Like I've been to conventions before and had an opportunity where I didn't take it up, and now I kind of regret it. I think the one I'm thinking of is that I think Gillian Anderson was at Baltimore Comic-Con one year.
Ooh.
And I'm really feeling like I should have gone ahead and paid like the $50 to wait in line to like meet her. But I'm kind of like, that's the one I really regret. And I think that was back when, was there a show that was based on, was it The Wake or something? There was some like horror comic that got turned into a limited like miniseries or something that I think she was in. That was supposed to be like the tangential comic related thing. And I was just like, man, like she's never going to be at a comic book convention again. I should have done it.
Like Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
But you know what though? I feel bad. Like I feel bad for any, not necessarily I feel bad, but like to be a woman and be like a nerd icon has to be really hard. Especially back in those days, like the Natalie Portman days or the Gillian Anderson days, where there wasn't as many women, like just period, within the fandom, at least out about it, you know what I'm saying? So it had to be like really difficult. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I understand she don't want to deal with, like, sweaty nerds all damn day. I wouldn't want to either if I was them. Like, they probably sour. Like, Natalie Portman, could you imagine the shit that Natalie Portman has been through the last 20 or so years?
I try not to. I try very consciously to not imagine what it must have been like for her being in those movies, having to be enthusiastic about all the press, having to wear those ridiculous costumes, having to deal with all of the fans, being like, because like she wasn't just like she was like Princess Leia plus, like she was Mrs. Darth Vader.
Right. And like she's like 14 when these movies started. Like so she's not even of legal age, right? And there's just a bunch of people saying she suck. Like
yeah, she I mean she did come out better than some of the other actors who were stuck in those movies, like the kid, Jake. Oh,
poor Jake Lloyd.
And the character actor who was Jar Jar.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess at least she was pretty enough to do other things afterwards.
Oh, wow, Amanda, wow. Wow.
Like, I don't even know how to put it in, I don't know. Anyone who survived those movies and still had a career, it's a miracle.
Like, there was an article a few years back where, like, she almost didn't have a career. But someone had to vouch for her because they're like, oh, cast Natalie Portman. Like, what? She can't act. Have you seen those Star Wars movies? And like, somebody's, like, another bit name had to vouch for her. Like, no, she can act. Trust us. She, like...
All they had to do was show the videos of her doing the press for those movies where she's pretending to be excited about it. That's acting right there. Oh, yes, George Lucas is a visionary director. And she says it, like, genuinely. That is acting.
You know what? We're not going to bash George Lucas. I mean, it's easy to, but you know, he sold all his property in you know, all his, like, really nice property in San Francisco and going to make public housing of it just to piss off his rich neighbors and to help people.
That is awesome. Look, George Lucas is a great guy, just maybe not like the best director.
You know, don't you know he wanted Ron Howard and Steven Spielberg to direct those movies and they told him no, he should direct them? I'd kick both of their asses. I should kick both of their asses for that decision. Like, no, George, you should direct these movies. They're your babies. You haven't directed in 20 years. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now that we've also devolved into a general pop culture podcast, man.
Today we are talking Planetary, written by Warren Ellis with art by John Cassaday. Speaking
of things that devolve into a general pastiche of pop culture.
This is a comic published by Wildstorm, which is like DC Comics. It ran from September 1998 to October 2009, consisting of 27 issues. That's a long time just for 27 issues, but I digress.
But it is John Cassaday.
It is. You know, you're right. That is how his name is spelled. For all these years, I think I just been glancing at his name for years instead of really looking at it. Like, oh, it's Cassaday. Okay, I didn't realize it was like some annoying spelling of Cassidy.
I wanted to throw out real quick. At Baltimore Comic Con, I actually met Laura Martin, who is the colorist.
Yes, which is great coloring, by the way.
And I was going to say that when I met her and realized, I talked to her a little bit and realized how much she worked with him, I realized that, because a lot of people really like John Cassaday's art. I was like, wow. I was like, it's really like her coloring with his art that I like. I don't even know if I would recognize it as his artwork without her.
Right.
And she talked about how amazing it was to get pulled along with him into some of the really great projects that he's been asked to do. And she very politely declined to say anything about what it was like to work with somebody who's chronically late and disorganized and writes books that take like 8 years to get 4 volumes done.
Right. We even read this. You see, we divulged. We even read the synopsis. Jaquito Ratner recruits a mysterious 100-year-old man named Elijah Snow to join the Planetary group, the archaeologists of the unknown.
Okay, so now that we're done with the synopsis, that totally doesn't remotely help us figure out what the book is about.
No, archaeologists of the unknown. What the hell is it? What the hell is that even means? By the way.
Right.
So, reading this, I gotta say, I'm of the mind that European comic book writers either don't like superheroes or have like just the weirdest bent on them. Cause like all of them, like Ellis, Morrison in a lot of ways, Enos, Miller, if you name any of them, right? They just have like these. They just don't seem to like superheroes for superhero sakes, and then in this case, he just outright hates them. But it just goes to show you how American superheroes are. Cause like when you give it to like somebody else, a British writer, there's always like this weird bent to it that like I've never thought of.
I think that's a really good observation.
Okay. So, but yeah, I just, that reading this is just like, well, man, try to explain what this series is the best as you can.
All right. So to be clear, I've read the whole thing before. I read the first 2 volumes for today because we're going to do the last part next time, right?
Yes, we are reading Volume 1 and Volume 2 today.
Okay. So I reread Volume 1 and Volume 2 for today. So what is Planetary? I would say the premise is it's sort of an organization that's trying to unravel the truth about the 20th century. It's sort of an organization that's trying to sort of figure out or unlock some sort of conspiracy that's been driving all of the supernatural events. So it involves visiting with different legends or visiting with different superheroes, and lots of like spy stuff and psychological warfare and the Cold War as a cover for a secret experiment thing, and almost in like an X-Files kind of way. Right.
So basically,
but that's really just the plot. Really what it is it's sort of Warren Ellis kind of looking at like all of the stories that came out of the last century and kind of saying like what was driving those stories and what's going to survive into the next century.
Right.
Like it's a very like 1999 book.
So
was that like close to the direction you were thinking, because it's possible to interpret this book a couple ways.
I was gonna say this is an old goddamn Who Framed Roger Rabbit book. In my opinion, like that's the best. That's the most layman way I can explain this book. Is like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but for comic for comic books, more or less. Right? I mean, like, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit had all these crossovers. Bugs Bunny finally met, Mickey Mouse and all that stuff. Two different companies. Shit would never happen now, right? And that's kind of
Right.
what this book is. Basically, everything in pop culture that you love basically is based in some... This book is everything in pop culture that you love is based in some type of realness or some type of reality.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly, but close enough. And then, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the not exactly, but the close enough. I was very frequently through this book wondering if the very similar but not exactly was driven by copyright.
Oh, definitely.
Or if it was intended for everything to be sort of like an alter version.
Well, definitely some of it is copyright, which we're going to get into. But
Okay.
but also, yeah, I think it's meant to, because like Wildstorm is owned by DC, so if they wanted to, they could have used like alternate versions.
Well, no. When he was writing it, Wildstorm wasn't.
It wasn't, was it? No, okay, you're
Then
right.
DC bought Wildstorm.
Right, you are absolutely right.
And possibly while he was writing it, they bought it. Because I know I very strongly associate DC and Wildstorm.
I think you're right.
I mean, it may have been an imprint under DC for a while too, but I think it was... I'm looking it up right now. All right, I mean, like, here's a great tip. The Wikipedia article for Wildstorm Publishing starts with the Image years.
Right, there you go.
So they were affiliated with Image for a little while, and like the McFarlane stuff. So yeah, it wasn't. It was not part of DC.
Okay, well there you go. Well, it's definitely like, to be honest, even if he had permission, they probably still wouldn't have gave it to him. I mean, even if he could, they probably still wouldn't have did it, just for the simple fact that a lot of this, the heroes don't come out looking particularly great.
Right.
Now, my history with this comic is that I've known about this comic. It's one of them things that's been on the list forever.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm kind of glad I waited 20 years just for the simple fact that it's finished. I don't know if I could have dealt with it taking 11 years to finish. But I remember reading about this in Wizard Magazine when it was only like 2 or 3 issues in, and them recommending it, and about the secret history of the world. And like the image they showed was of a giant Godzilla like monster. Now, with that being said, I wasn't quite prepared for how pop culture heavy this book was going to be. Just like in the first issue, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, is that dude supposed to be Doc Savage? Like, holy shit, that's fucking Doc Savage. And like, he looks just like they don't even try to hide the fact that that's Doc Savage. Like,
Yeah.
and like all his homeboys, I kind of recognize. Like, is that supposed to be the Shadow? Is that Fu Manchu? Is that supposed to be Fu Manchu? And like, then they fight the alternate, the Bleed, and alternate version of the Justice League come through. Like, is that the Justice League? That's the goddamn Justice League. They look just like the Justice League. I mean, slightly different,
Right.
but you could tell. Like,
Well, I mean, I think maybe this is maybe we just start going through issue by issue
right. See, that's the
and
thing.
start talking. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not sure if I get all the references. So maybe together we can and maybe some aren't references to anything. See, that's the hard thing. Like I got a lot of the references, but the stuff I didn't get, I'm not for sure. Like you said, if it's a reference or if it's something, or if it's like some type of original concept, right?
Well, it's also like even if you don't know, even if you don't recognize Doc Savage, you know that type of character.
Right.
Like the sort of like pulpy adventure, you know, almost like an Indiana Jones. Yeah. So like you understand the underlying trope, even if you don't know which specific example Ellis is going for. Right. And I think that that's part of Ellis being a really good writer and also working with Cassaday and Martin on like, how do I get like the feeling of this character enough so that even if someone doesn't recognize who exactly they are, they get like the personality and like the important parts.
Right.
Okay, so do you want to try to issue by issue this?
I mean, it's 12 issues, but we can try.
Okay.
Like I said, we talked about the first issue, which is like a Doc Savage story. So there's an overarching plot, but a lot of these stories are self-contained.
Right. I think it's kind of important to like, because the first issue is setting up some of that overarching plot.
Right. So Jaquita Wagner. Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Is she Wonder Woman?
I thought that she was Wonder Woman's daughter with Ambrose.
Okay. Because like there's that issue where like that looks like Jaquita on the Amazon island, but I wasn't for sure. Like, is that supposed to be her or not? I mean, it would make sense.
I mean, it looked a lot like her, and it would make sense. And then a few issues later, we had, as Ambrose was dying, a flashback to him, like, having had, like, a daughter or something.
Right.
And then we have Elijah drops a line about, like, how could you pretend not to know me? Like, I used to change your diapers.
But the thing is, Jaquita was shown to be a lover of Ambrose.
Or was that her mom?
Huh. Well, it can't be her mom because I was wanting to say 1997.
Okay. Well, then.
I look again. Like, look, we're going issue by issue. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. But no, Jaquita Wagner, who's very strong and very fast, gets this guy named Elijah Snow, who's just been eating in this diner for the last few years.
He's just been living out in the desert.
Yeah, basically, he's just been living out in the desert, dressed all in white. You know,
not suspicious at all.
Not
totally normal.
Totally normal. And she offered him a job, and he says, "Yeah." Like it's a very fast setup. Like it's a very fast setup. Like Ellis wants to get you right into this action, right? He don't want to spend a lot of needless time, you know, trying to set this up and explain everything. He kind of explains it as you go.
Well, he also lets the mystery of Elijah's background be one of the overarching mysteries or plot lines that kind of keeps you reading. So it's not like you're not necessarily reading for like, who do they fight next? You're reading because you want to find out more about Elijah.
Right.
And more about Jaquita and more about like who these characters are.
So then we meet the drummer. Now, man, let me ask you, why did John Cassaday draw himself into this comic?
Why not?
Well, okay. That's all.
I mean, yeah, why not?
Right. So yeah, they go on their first mission, and it's to Doc Savage. Now apparently he doesn't need to eat or anything, and he's just been sitting here for 50 years.
He's evolved and trained himself to the point where he doesn't need to eat or sleep anymore, and he can heal some injuries through the power of thought alone.
Yeah, all that seems crazy and doesn't hold up to me, but you know, like I'm gonna need a better explanation than that. But you know,
So we're fine. We're fine with Elijah Snow, who can control, like, who can freeze stuff, and we're fine with Chiquita being an Amazon badass, but the Doc Savage ripoff not needing to eat or sleep for 50 years.
Yeah, and
Disbelief ruined.
well, because it's this thing where this is gonna sound weird, right? Like even in your fantastical stuff, you like look, it's not a big problem. I want to make that clear. This is not a big issue, but even in your like sci-fi fantasy stuff, you need some basis in reality. Like, you know what I'm saying? I understand, like, you know, Elijah Snow, some type of weird mutant that got powers. I understand that about Chiquita, right? I understand that there's, like, superpowered people. But the idea that through
willpower alone could defy basic physical
biological, yeah, like, that's just... I don't know. Am I being nitpicky? I mean, I'm not, like, am I being, like...
No. I just think it's really interesting that there are sort of like magic or like there are supernatural rules, and that one really does feel like it's pressing up against the boundaries of them, and maybe just because it feels like it comes from a different rule book. And I feel like that happens a lot in this series, is that we're mixing like alien technology science fiction with like magical mutant power science fiction, and those don't always mesh well.
Right.
And the pulpy, like, you know, Flash Gordon old-fashioned science fiction doesn't necessarily go with the contemporary, like, math-based multiverse science fiction.
Right. Okay, good. So, but yeah, it was just like, okay, I guess. Like, look, I've always been like that. I can just roll with it, even if it like strikes me as I can just roll with it. Like, oh well, okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rolling in this book.
Oh, there's so much rolling. So they find him. He explains the interdimensional bleed and the multiverse, and how they had to fight. Like,
It's important. The reason why they built that was he was part of a society that was trying to like make the world perfect. They were trying to end World War II.
Right.
And so they built the Snowflake was a supercomputer that would examine like all possible realities and collapse onto one final perfect reality, and it would actually change the world when it came up with the solution to the problem.
But there was a flaw in the calculations. Am I correct?
No, my understanding is it was working perfectly.
Okay.
And that the problem is it wasn't just examining other possibilities, it was actually creating other universes and checking to see the answer.
Right.
And so it was an alternate Justice League that was in an alternate universe that the computer created, and they said, the computer is about to destroy our universe for not being perfect. We have to attack them.
Okay. Gotcha. See?
So, like, as long as this computer thing is out there running, it's creating other realities, and any of those other realities is as real as ours and could jump over and visit us.
Gotcha. Okay. And he's the only one that survived with these really nasty looking legs?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Did you see his legs? Did you not see how terrible those
Oh, no, I saw that. I just, I think it's actually implied if you look at the page where he lands after being, like, blasted, and then next to it you see how his legs are atrophied. I think that's what he was eating. I think he was letting his body, like, slowly digest himself, like, leg up.
Oh.
Like, he wasn't, like, blasted and injured to look like that. I think it was just he was laying there, and he doesn't have to eat food, but he's going to be, like, digesting something.
Okay. Works for me. So, all right, they find him. They find this. Then the second issue is the Japanese monster issue, right?
Yep.
Which is great, and they have all the classic ones. All the ones that was featured in the hit movie Godzilla King of Monsters this summer.
Yeah.
Like every single one. Godzilla,
yeah.
Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. They are all here. in some form or another.
No, it was definitely the best of list.
Yes, yes. So let me ask you: this guy that they gonna meet in Japan, is he supposed to be anybody? Is that a reference to anything, Amanda?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It felt very. You mean the guy who was running their Tokyo office of Planetary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I just got kind of like a general like cyberpunk vibe from him.
Right.
And thought he was just kind of like, again, like if he's representing a specific character, that's fine, but he's also kind of representing just like that genre in this whole like we're visiting all of the different stories.
So now we've jumped into a completely different genre, right? We went from pulpy like sci-fi adventures to now we are clearly into like, you know, monster movies.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all dead except for one. Like it's just
the
Rodan analog is still alive, and there's this crazy dude who's an author who goes to the island with his disciples.
Yeah,
and they all die horrible deaths.
Yep. And Planetary shows up just in time to just steal any intel and information that was left on the island.
Which they do. So,
super convenient.
Right. Anything else you want to say about this issue?
Just that at the very end, so Chiquita was running to try and, fight the military, and the terrorists are on this island, and she's like, I'm gonna go punch them all really hard. And she
love her. I love her so much.
She's like, I'm going to go punch them real hard. And she's running, and they release nerve gas. And, cool as a cucumber. Elijah Snow is just standing there, and he just, like, freezes it out of the air.
Get the hell off the show, Amanda, right now for that pun. No, I'm just playing.
Right. But it was kind of, like, implied what his power set was. And that was just a moment of you're just like, oh. Yeah, he's like an extreme badass and is not like ever in any danger ever, probably.
Right.
And that kind of just gives you another little hint of like the mystery of this guy. Like, how could someone who could probably just like freeze an entire lake instantly end up just hanging out in the desert doing nothing?
I just want to go. We really haven't explained the drama. The third member of the team, he's a technopath, right? If I'm correct, right?
That is a really great way to describe his powers. Yeah,
he's a technopath. He's the youngest. Well, I don't know, but he seemed kind of youngish. He used drumsticks to talk to machines.
Well, and it's not just machines; it's like information,
right?
Because at other points he talks about like things which don't explicitly have wires and electrons. He can still sort of understand the organization of information.
Mm-hmm. But he needs vibrations, it seems like.
Yes, he needs vibrations. So it's a very interesting power set because it's not like a immediately solve every problem type of power. But it does seem super useful if you're a group of spies to have somebody who can talk to any computer at all.
Right. And we should also explain that there's the person that's run this organization is called the Fourth Man that nobody sees or talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just keep that in your back pocket because that becomes important later in this. Yes. But if you read this like you're supposed to, you know already. But we go to the third issue. There's not much that I mean, it's a good issue. It's basically about basically about what a vengeful Japanese ghost cop.
It wasn't clear. I thought it was maybe supposed to be Hong Kong this time.
You know what? Oh shit, was that racist? Yeah, I think it is Hong Kong. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, there isn't too much I was actually going to say one of my disappointments in this issue was actually that the backgrounds were really light,
Right.
and there isn't a lot of there isn't a lot of detail in the backgrounds to tell you where they are. It could have been literally any city.
Well,
Like this could have been like Columbus, Ohio.
well, like if this is supposed to be Hong Kong, then I was like, what is this a reference to? It seems like this might be a reference to like John Woo movies, like John Woo Hong Kong movies from the early '90s.
Right, and the trope of the vengeful cop is like that's like every not every that's like 40% of all martial arts movies.
Yes, yes, and like the end of this has a very interesting thing where like they open up some type of thing, this like soul holder, and it's like all these bodies just in like this giant thing suspended. I don't know what to make of this.
Well, it was interesting because that was kind of what I was saying with the drummer was this is like an example of him interpreting something that isn't like an electronic computer, but it was some sort of vessel that was holding the information of all these souls.
Right.
And he's still interpreted it as like a machine, as something that was holding information, even though it looks like, I mean, it's drawn, it's super creepy because it's like an ornate glass canister, but then you look at the scale and you're like, it's filled with thousands of bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all curled up so they look like little atoms or molecules. It's very cool.
Right, so we go now to the fourth issue. Now, I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
This is real cool. And again, this has to be a reference to something. But this one, I'm not quite for sure about.
Right.
Do you know, Amanda, by any chance?
I'm not completely sure either.
But it feels like it's something. Like, it doesn't feel like it's nothing, if that makes any sense. Like, it feels like this is definitely, like, homage to something. But I don't know what.
I feel like the ornate design of, well, I mean, like let's just talk. This is at the Heart Corporation.
Yes, the Heart Corporation. Yes,
which comes back. That name comes back later. They find some weird artifact, and this guy runs across it, and he's transported into a ship that's trapped inside the Earth.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, I'm about to say, and it's always been there. It's been there for like millions of years. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's been down there forever, but it's also like some sort of like magical paradise ship. And the ship is designed to interact with living beings. So like the ship, I mean, like that kind of makes sense. Like any vehicle, you need like a human willpower to drive it someplace. Like it's not just going to fly somewhere on its own.
Right.
But specifically, this ship needs 7 people who are going to voluntarily become like ship symbiotes and like live with the ship and fly it around. And this guy is the first one. And, Planetary offers to help him find more people, I guess.
Yep. I'm looking up maybe
the ornate design of his like pilot's costume. I got kind of like a Kirby vibe from it.
Definitely Kirby.
Like a little bit like Eternals.
Holy shit! I think I know.
What are you finding?
I think this might be Challengers of the Unknown.
Okay.
Which again, is invented by Kirby.
Okay.
So, I don't think is there 7 of them? I can't. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 members, but it feels like this might be. I mean, it's definitely Kirby. Like his the guy's suit design. That's definitely Kirby inspired. That's definitely like some new guy's internal galactic shit going on there.
Yeah, no, it's very, and the whole ship has sort of like, I keep want to say like ornate.
Right.
Like there's just like extra shit all over the place, and you're like, yeah, more. No, 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 I want more.
It's definitely. I'm thinking Challenges of the Unknown. I can't be quite for sure, but I think Challenges of the Unknown.
Okay.
Because when you said Kirby, it kind of clicked in my head. You know what I'm saying? It would be like they would be like explorers like traveling the unknown, Challenges of the Unknown. So I think it might be that. So great issue.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of like a comic book out just about that. Honestly, like you can just give me a comic about that shit and I would read it. So the next issue is actually like a come down issue. In a way, because it's just Elijah Snow talking to what's his name, Doc Brass.
Yeah.
The Doc Savage analog, and they're just the whole issue. And this is more of a story issue, right? This is more of them telling the overall arcing story as opposed to at this point just being one-offs.
Right. This is kind of tying together two of the stories that we've already seen, which is the Doc Brass. The first issue where they have to fight the Justice League when they build the computer, and then also we get the connection to the Hark Corporation and realize that it's not accidental that Planetary went and got an artifact, an alien spaceship artifact from someplace that is affiliated with the Harks.
Right, and like he's seen. I want to call him Doc Savage. So damn bad. But Doc Brass seems to know a lot more about Elijah Snow than he's led on.
Yeah.
He just seems to know a lot more, period. Which brings me to an interesting point. You see how like Doc Brass group seems a lot like Planetary? Like in their mission?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's the thing. So, there's not a lot to talk about that you wouldn't know from reading it. You know what I'm saying? Just it tells more of the backstory, which becomes important as these 12 issues come on. So we come to the end of book 1, which is chapter 6. So Amanda, the Fantastic Four.
I know, right?
Now, when you read this back in the day, right? Did you get that reference? Did you understand that was the Fantastic Four?
So here's the thing, is I read it and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like the Fantastic Four. And then I just like completely let it go.
Right.
And it didn't even occur to me to think that this was like Ellis giving like an alternate interpretation of like, what would the Fantastic Four really be like? Like I completely accepted it as like a superficial reference, and then I didn't read into it any further and go, okay, well, why did he pick them? Or like, why is this important to be in there? And so this time I read it and I was like, oh, interesting. And it goes back to what you were saying. It was like, oh, British guys hate American superheroes, huh?
Yeah, because like he automatically just makes them sinister, right? Well, the Sue Storm stand-in is like a Nazi, is the daughter of a Nazi scientist.
Yeah.
And the Reed Richards stand-in apparently was like a genius, but they said something about his background wasn't right, so he couldn't be like the American Einstein, because they never say what that background was, but apparently it was really fucked up. Yeah. So, yeah, man, this is awesome. Like, it seems to me, well, a lot of the superhero stuff that he uses is from a certain time. It seems to be from that atomic age, that silver age era of like the early 60s, when comic books was just coming into its own.
Yeah.
As like, Marvel and like everything being science based.
Mm-hmm.
So like he uses a lot of science based hero tropes specifically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
And also a lot of like exploring and adventuring tropes.
Exactly.
Like I feel like it's very important that like part of this not so Fantastic Four backstory is that they were like a alternate space program that was ready to go to the moon even sooner, and that they were, using the Cold War as sort of a premise to get funding for all of the weird stuff they were doing. And it's sort of, gosh, I just kind of like it as this idea of, it's sort of like they corrupted the spirit of like doing science for the betterment of society and like exploring because you're interested and curious, and because they were corrupt, they got like these evil powers almost.
So I want to talk to you.
Sorry, that was a big idea, but
no. I actually want to talk about this. Now I think me and you talked about this off. I think me and you talked about this off the podcast before. And I know I've talked about it with other people, and I've, I have a weird way of looking at comic books since I came to it later. Like I think we both came to comic books a little bit later in life than like a lot of people do. And
right.
like you kind of went the independent route, but I still went the superhero route, right? But because of that, I look at things a little differently. And like this actually articulates something I've been saying for years. I think I've said this to you, as in like, you ever notice in superhero comics, the technology never changed for everybody, and the Pacific, example I've always used was the Fantastic car that the Fantastic Four drive alone would change the course of human history, because it's like a self-powered, like it's like a self powered aircraft that doesn't need like fuel or some shit. And I was just thinking, like, all these superheroes around, all this super science, people come back from the dead, people can heal, but somehow like it's just this contrivance of superhero comics where none of this actually changes the world. But if this shit existed for real, it would change everything, right? Like all this futuristic and alien tech lying around, if it was like a thing.
Yeah.
1999 or 2019 at this point would look like the 34th century, like the 35th century, because this shit is just lying around, but somehow nobody utilizes it but the superheroes and the supervillains. Like none of this shit gets out, and like that doesn't make any sense.
And I like the Marvel movies tried to address that a little bit,
right?
But that really, because of the material they're drawing from, they can't really change the day-to-day world too much.
Right. I mean, like, it's just the thing about comic books. It makes sense in the sense that you understand why it can't happen. But there's always been the back of my head of, like, this doesn't really make any sense. This issue right here gives an explanation for that. Is the fact that basically this version of the Fantastic Four has been hoarding it for itself and would not give it to anybody else.
Yeah.
It explicitly says that. So obviously, it makes me feel smart that me and Warren Ellis was on the same wavelength, and I didn't know. Like, I had the same thought as Warren Ellis, but like it's one of those things that always kind of like, when people try to put too much realistic bent on superheroes, it always annoys me, because I was like, look, if you want to take all this to its logical, like, yes, Batman can't beat Darkseid because that's unrealistic, but if you want to take any of this shit to its logical conclusion, none of it makes sense. But like, it's very odd that that's specifically said in this particular comment, that basically we just keeping it for ourselves, fuck everybody else.
Well, that is the simplest explanation, right?
Right, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody else deserves all this cool technology but us. It's ours. Nobody else should have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's... Because when you said about, like, how they're just, they just hoarding the technology, and it's weird that that's even brought... Because I always thought it was just one of those things I thought about. Honestly, up until this book, I literally just thought it was one of those things I thought about, just how, like, if just one alien ship crashed like in the middle of New York, that would change everything as far as technology goes, right? But it never does in comic books. I'm sorry, that was a long rant. Forgive me.
You're fine, man. You're fine.
Yes.
This whole comic book series is a big rant.
So they meet this version of the human, their version of the Human Torch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he basically beats up Jaquita. And he seems like he knows Elijah Snow, but he won't say how or why he knows Elijah Snow, and then he disappears. Is there anything else you want to talk about or pick up on this?
I will say that it is interesting that the space anomaly that the Artemis Fantastic Four project ran into looked a lot like the snowflake computer.
Right.
And that when our Human Torch starts torching, it looks a lot more like the snowflake computer maybe than fire.
Right. So
it's kind of like, hey, wait a minute. Do these guys also know our Doc Savage friend? Are these actually all different groups? I don't know.
But it seems to me that all these people know each other.
Yes.
It seems like they all seem, what was they called, Twilight people or something like that, as in like they was all born at the exact same time.
The 100-year babies or something, right?
Right, exactly. They all born at 1900 at midnight. Right.
Oh, actually, that reminds me of something I think that came up in the Snow and Doc Brass Savage talking to each other.
Okay.
Which was a reference that I just kind of like vaguely know of.
Okay.
Which is Jenny Sparks and the Authority.
Right, which I haven't read.
It's another Wildstorm book. Yeah, I don't know it either, but
you know what that means, don't you?
Gotta read it.
Oh, yep.
It's just going to be a Wildstorm winter for us.
No, not right now, but that goes definitely on the list at this point.
Yeah.
So okay, now this running a little long. This is the last issue we're going to talk about in any great detail because, well, it's related to this podcast. Chapter 7. So that's Constantine, huh?
Yeah, but it's not just Constantine.
No, it's the dude from Transmetropolitan too.
Yeah, why not? Why the fuck not?
Okay, so I just want to say something, right? The cover for this, I'm pretty sure that's Dave McKean from. Yes. Oh my God! Look, it just clicked in my head. It just clicked in my head. It's a Dave McKean cover for a reason, huh? because it's dealing with
Well, okay. Well, I mean, like there's like everything's happening in this.
Yeah.
This is the issue where Warren Ellis is like, look, if you guys didn't understand what I was doing yet, I am going to make it painfully obvious for you because you get the Constantine style story.
It's basically Neil Gaiman the issue. That's basically
we get like a Death and a Dream sitting on a park bench feeding pigeons. We recognize that. We get all the superheroes at a funeral for a John Constantine stand-in.
We get
including
Swamp Thing. Fucking Swamp Thing is there.
Swamp Thing and an Etrigan and
the Metal Men are there. All the 80s.
Yeah, and then we get our ghost story. They talk about how shitty the 80s were, how stupid the 80s look now that it's 10 years later.
Which is weird because I'm pretty sure for like Ellis, all these people are his heroes. Like it's like he's just making it's like he's poking fun at them, but in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Just like a gentle poke at them.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what he's saying is he's like this whole series is like let's revisit what we've accomplished over the last 100 years and look at like what we should be doing going forward. Like what does all of that mean? What did all of that accomplish? And which parts of it do we keep and then which parts of it go into the future with us?
Now I don't recognize every character. I recognize most of them. Is that supposed to be Booster Gold? I'm not even for sure. No, that's Animal Man. Shit, that's Animal Man. I'm sorry. That's a Morrison creation. Like it hit me as I was saying it. Like The drummer boy is playing a Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
An old school Game Boy from 1989. Now, who's the crazy dude supposed to be that's smoking the weed? Who is he supposed to be? The shifting man. Fell out the shift door wearing some kind of bleed suit in 85. Is that just supposed to be Ellen Moore crazy ass? And that one am I? Like
I mean, that was my guess.
Okay. I'm glad. So this Jet Carter character, right? Damn it, man.
I'm so glad we made time for this one because this was. I was like, okay, I get it now. This is great.
So this Jet Carter character, right now,
mm-hmm.
if Doc Bress was real close to Dot Savage,
yeah,
DC almost probably should have sued them for this because like he's Constantine in all but name.
Yeah,
like
No, it is. It's supposed to be John Constantine.
No, but like this is the thing. They don't even try to hide it. Like, you know what I'm saying? They don't change anything about him. They don't, make him slightly off. No, it's just Constantine. It's literally just Constantine.
Even the same initials?
Even the same initials, right? And then at the end, it comes out he fakes his death. Is that supposed to be Superman?
So, okay, I actually really, really liked this guy. This like...
Special needs superhero?
Yes, because the thing that he was complaining about to no one in particular, like obviously his gripe, he was crazy. His gripe wasn't with our fake John Constantine. He was a superhero complaining about having his story retconned in a dark and gritty way.
Oh, that's what that meant.
Right, like he's like, like I should have been noble, clean. I didn't want to wake up. You didn't have to take photographs of like, what did he say?
Thai boys.
I didn't want to wake up in Soho with 12 Valiumed up Thai rent boys and terrible stains on my tights. like that is what the 80s did to superheroes.
Right.
And then they took pictures of it and showed everybody. And he says, I liked my life. There was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't hip. I wasn't trendy. I wasn't edgy. And you know what? That was okay. I didn't need split personalities, a nervous breakdown, a shift in sexual orientation, my life being a complete lie. If you didn't want me, you should have just bloody ignored me. If that isn't like pointing the finger at what the 80s did to superheroes, I don't know what else is.
Wow. And you know what? It's funny because we're gonna have this conversation in December when we read Kingdom Come, because that's very much what Kingdom Come is about too.
Yeah. In
a more elegant way, by the way. This is not saying this is inelegant, but there's a lot more in your face. But yeah, is this what, because he looks a lot like Superman?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was just supposed to be generic superhero guy.
Right.
Like, I'm generic superhero guy, and I'm here to say, like, I don't know, if he was supposed to be a specific one, maybe that makes it even better, but that was enough for me. I was just like, all right, I hear what you're saying to me this morning, Warren Ellis.
Right. So, yeah, great issue. My favorite issue. I was just I read this like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to this about Amanda. Like, I was almost jumping up and down like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, Vertigo is the Vertigo issue.
Yes, the Vertigo issue. I do want to say I'm really uncomfortable with how Cassaday was able to draw Spider Jerusalem like really sexy.
Draw who?
Spider Jerusalem, the trans metropolitan guy who, like, I guess is supposed to be John Constantine's new alter ego. Right. And I was like, I'm not comfortable. Like, he's kind of like. In Transmet, Derek Robertson draws him as sort of like a really weird guy. And I'm like, wait, am I supposed to be reading him as like potentially attractive?
Okay, so let me ask you something. I haven't read I know some about Transmetropolitan.
Yeah.
So That's also Warren Ellis, right?
It is.
So John Constantine who is like not necessarily a Neil Gaiman character, but like British people tend to love using John Constantine, right?
Yes.
Transforms into his character. Now, within that book, could they be the same character? Like, is there a possibility that Spider Jerusalem could be John Constantine in some other weird universe?
I think. Okay, so like in universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not really, but I want to say that seeing this makes me rethink how Warren Ellis, like what role he wanted Spider Jerusalem to play. So, Spider is a sort of guerrilla journalist. Okay. Like he's after the truth of the world. He doesn't care what anyone thinks. But he doesn't have the Transmetropolitan world doesn't have like magic. It has technology, and it's a world where people are not afraid of technology, and like it's transhuman, as in like humans can augment themselves and change themselves and like define what it means to be human. Like if you want to build a computer on top of your brain and be like half cyborg, that's fine. If you want to like graft extra arms onto your body, like that's fine. So the magic of the world sort of comes from science fiction in a way, but it's mostly like a political satire, and the Spider character is just like really about the truth in this like war against this war of morals that's going on in the world around him. And I'm like, oh, you could read John Constantine as sort of like a warrior for what the real truth of the world is, in like this weird magic-based rule system where you have like ambiguous morals floating around too.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I'm like, I now kind of see that Spider Jerusalem Transmetropolitan could have been Warren Ellis saying, look, John Constantine is so 20th century. We need to do something different with the character.
Right.
Like, can't keep going back to cloudy, foggy alleys in London. We need to do something different with him.
Gotcha. Okay, this running a little long, but there's a lot to get through. But we're going to try to make this as quick as possible. Because next issue is a big issue because, again, it's one of those story issues, right?
Yeah.
We meet Elijah Snow predecessor, Ambrose Chase. This dude is fucking awesome. It almost make Elijah Snow less cool how awesome Ambrose Chase is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like
and
I,
he's black.
Like I was,
and
yeah,
black.
I was, yeah.
Go ahead.
I almost, when I saw him, thought that this was like a multiverse story, and that he was just like an infinitely cooler Elijah Snow from another universe, and of course he's going to be black in that one.
Of course. Well, no, let me stop. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry.
But I was just like I thought that's where they were going with it, and then finding out that he was the former third man.
Okay, I'm looking at it. So this is 1997. So this is a couple of years before. So yes. So apparently Ambrose and Jaquita had a baby. That's what it is, apparently. So this is Jaquita's lover.
Yeah. And also she hooked up with John Constantine.
She did.
Can't blame her.
I can't either. I don't even like dudes. So they break into this military base that was running this weird experiment. Apparently, again, weird concept. They made characters that came from a fictional universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess that would mean something later, right? I guess that's.
It's very like Chekhov's gun. It's very like, yes. Hey, so we made a ship that could go into the fictional universe, and it brought back a character with it, and that character killed everyone else that was in the ship and then escaped. So no one knows what this character looks like or what they can do or where they went. Huh. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Ambrose has a conversation with the third man before he has a flashback right before he dies of the third man. And you know what? Ambrose don't necessarily die. Apparently he's supposed to be dead, but he disappeared. So I wonder, I mean, know, but I don't, because I haven't read the other 2 volumes yet. I'm trying to keep fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, is that going to come back, the fact that he disappeared instead of
well,
dying?
And his power set isn't clear, but it seems like he can like control physics, like reality.
Right.
And like he seems super, super OP. Like I feel like he probably isn't dead or something, you know?
Exactly. So the next issue, let's just move on. Is what I like to call the Justice League issue.
Yeah, we got
Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, right? Who's I'm pretty sure is Jaquita. I'm pretty sure that's Jaquita.
Yeah.
I will almost put money on that's Jaquita. And they basically killed the Green Lantern and Superman of this world. Because the Fantastic Four. And I wonder, since Marvel been constantly whooping DC ass for the last 50 years, I wonder if that's a comment on Marvel and DC placing the hierarchy.
I mean, I like that. I like that idea, especially since you're talking about like what would really happen. And it's like, well, honestly, like if Reed Richards, was evil,
right?
And we had Ultimate Universe Reed Richards, and like an alien ship crash landed in a cornfield in Kansas. Yeah, he would go out there and kill the baby.
Is this thing, right?
And take all the technology out of the ship, yeah.
And hoard it for himself. And you know, everybody knows like the history of comic books enough to know that the Fantastic Four signified a change within comic books. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the big bane of like modern day comic books, was the Fantastic Four. And Marvel hasn't looked back since. And I wonder, having like the Fantastic Four kill like an analog of the Fantastic Four killing analogs of the Justice League is somehow Ellis like commentary on the history of comic books and how Marvel has dominated over the last 50 years, on how like the coming of the Fantastic Four explains a changing of the guard within comics.
Yeah, I think absolutely, especially with my reading of this being Ellis doing a survey of the last 100 years and like telling us the true story of how comic books, of how stories worked over the last century. I think it's important that like the events of the story sort of roughly reflect what happened in our industry.
Right. So we move on to the next issue. Is this James Bond and Nick Fury, or is it just an amalgamation of both?
I got a real James Bond vibe, yeah.
Yeah, but like it's kind of drawn like the old Nick Fury coming from the 60s. But yes, I got a strain, and like this is somebody Elijah Snow knows. And again, it's weird. Like all these people know Elijah Snow, but they not telling him.
Yeah,
it's almost like they're trying to protect him from something.
I mean, understanding his power set, I would not want to make Elijah Snow angry at me.
Right.
I would want him to think about me as little as possible.
All right.
So I can't really blame people for not wanting to upset him.
Yeah. So, is there any more to say about that issue? Like, basically, by the end of it, Elijah Snow knows a whole lot more about his past than what he did before, like a whole lot more. And he realized who the fourth man is.
Yeah.
So at that point, he in issue 12, the end of this book, he bring in his two co-workers, for lack of a better term, his colleagues, and they are freaked out because
he's doing a little supervillain routine, right? He's like in a dark room with the blinds drawn and like in shadow, and
right.
And suddenly they're like, this dude wears a white suit all the time. That's not normal.
Already, and
yeah.
Come to find out, he's the fourth man. The whole time he's been the fourth man.
Yeah.
So let's give credence to why Doc Savage kind of knows him, why how everybody kind of knows him, because he's basically been doing this for 100 years now. You know what I'm saying? He's basically funded this organization for the last 100 years.
Yeah. He's been funding Planetary. He's been writing the Planetary Guide. He was probably organizing the Adirondack group that was Doc Savage and Thomas Edison in the Shadow. He probably also was funding Project Artemis at some point. He knows James Bond. He knows Wonder Woman. He's everybody.
Right. He's a Mary Sue.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
You know what? We just skipped over the issue about the 50s bugs and stuff they had the giant woman and the giant ants. We just skipped over that issue completely. That was a really good issue. I just want to say that was a really good issue. And again, another pop culture stamp that he wanted to put into this book was 1950 monsters sci-fi movies.
Right, and everything that was sort of radiation motivated.
Yep, and
but he has the really interesting sort of joke in there about it having a half-life of 50 years.
Right.
Which again, I think is him sort of saying hey, the crazy giant radioactive ant stories from the 50s were great. They're done now though. We're ready for something new.
Right. So, yeah, I think, and apparently he volunteered to have his memory wiped to protect his team. But now that it's back, he's calling out the Fantastic Four. And I can't wait to read the rest of this shit. I tell you that right now. I might get off this podcast right now and read the rest of it because I'm excited. Amanda, your thoughts on this issue?
I am also very excited because This is just really good pacing because we were talking about how the beginning of this story is driven by the mystery of who is Elijah Snow and what is his deal. And while we were being driven by that mystery, these other blocks were being put in place.
Right.
And the pacing, the reading this we have is just so good because it's okay, now we as the readers and Elijah, we know pretty much who he is. And then all of these blocks that were being put up while we weren't paying attention are all lined up, and it's pew, 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 pew. And I'm ready to watch him actually know what's going on and manipulate people and kick some ass. And I'm expecting, obviously I've read it before, so I kind of remember a little bit, but I feel like Snow's capable of a little bit of Batman stuff where he can plan 5 moves ahead and have things come out the way he wants.
Right. He definitely gives you that vibe, and he calls out, I'm just going to call him the Fantastic Four with a giant ice four in the middle of this park that could be seen from space, which was awesome. That was a cool, badass moment. Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see I'm excited to see him have agency in the story, and with 2 volumes, I feel like there can be a satisfying conclusion to him taking this over. And then I'm also really interested because I've been doing this sort of meta reading of it this time, trying to see if I can get a more clear image of what Warren Ellis thinks the future of stories is supposed to be.
One more thing. They actually had an issue about the Hulk that we just completely skipped by.
They did?
Yeah. It was in the last issue. I forgot to bring that up. It was a little story. They were telling the story about this man that saved this lady, and he turned into some type of beast. The nuclear spring.
Okay. I don't think I have that.
What? They break into this military base with this old man in there.
What number is it? What issue?
It is at the end of issue 6. It's a
issue 6.
It's a preview story original. So this is something they probably released.
Oh no, yeah, I have that.
Okay, that's the Hulk. That's the Hulk origin. Yeah. And I like the idea that like they locked him up, like 500 feet below the earth, and it took him 30 years to die, with no food, no water. That's all. That's just like that nightmare scenario of the Hulk. I just kind of like that. But you know what? I think that's it. I think we've read everything, right? I think we're done with this issue. I mean, this show. It's been this is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, honestly.
I mean, I was kind of expecting it to go a little bit. I think that when we had to lay a lot of groundwork, and that when we get to the conclusion of the series, I think we'll be able to go a little bit faster.
All right. So, Amanda, if people wants to talk to us about Planetary, where can they reach us?
We are on Twitter. We're Comic Book Club 52, like the number of weeks in a year, or the new 52. Those were the good old days, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was easy to complain about comic books back in those days because there was a giant bullseye on DC. So we're Comic Book Club 52 on Twitter. You can email us, comicbookclub52@gmail.com. And we are on Facebook as the Comic Book Club. You will need to look for us among several others, but we are the only ones reading Planetary right now, I promise you.
And join us next week as we talk about Volume 3 of Floor Planetary. And remember, October is Batman month, and we will be reviewing The Killing Joke and The Long Halloween if you want to get a jump on that for that month. Also, the Joker movie. Apparently, it's a masterpiece from everything I've read. Man, did not see that coming. Did you, Amanda?
I'm just really interested in how we can already know it's a masterpiece before it's come out. But
no. I'm not saying it's a I'm not saying it's a masterpiece. In my
opinion.
No.
I mean, everybody is. Yeah.
But all the reviews are coming out, and apparently it's getting standing ovations, and all the hoity-toity film critics love it. So I guess we'll see, folks. Take care of yourself. Be kind to each other, please. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. I'm Jamil Payne.
I'm Amanda Comey.
And we are out.